God didn't just ask me, did your marriage end? He asked, did something deeper end too?
And I answered with a lump in my throat, my marriage ended, but so did my childhood.
See, that's where it all began for me. I grew up in a chaotic home in Sacramento, California. My mom was only 17 when she had me, and my dad was 20. They were just kids playing house. Immature, reckless, and emotionally unequipped to raise a child. So, who did? My grandparents, my dad's parents took on that responsibility. They were my everything. We lived on the same property, two separate houses. I stayed with my grandparents while my mom and dad lived next door. But truth be told, I always felt more mature than them. Their relationship was toxic, volatile fights, yelling, my dad being aggressive and controlling. My mom was stuck in it, like a prisoner without chains. I watched them crash into each other emotionally, day after day. Eventually, my mom found the strength to leave him. And that's when my life split in half. She took me away from the only people who had truly cared for me grandparents. I was sent to live with her side of the family in Boise, Idaho. And from the moment I stepped into that house, I felt like a stranger. Her family was different. I don't mean just emotionally, I mean physically too. Her relatives were all pale-skinned blondes with bright blue eyes. I didn't look like them, didn't talk like them, didn't feel like them. I felt like an alien in my own family. There was no connection, no warmth, no sense of home. Meanwhile, I missed my grandparents so deeply it hurt to breathe. They were my parents. They were my safe place. And then I lost them. My grandfather passed from cancer. 1 year later, my grandmother did too. Just like that, the people who gave my life structure, love, and consistency were gone. I was maybe 11. I floated through life after that, disconnected, unanchored. My dad, once he separated from my mom, went wild. He started partying, dating, traveling, finally living the teenage years he never had. And my mom, she was struggling to rebuild her own life. So I was left in limbo, too adult to be a child, too broken to be whole. I attended a Christian private school, strict, structured, conservative, but it saved me. There, I discovered something I hadn't felt in years: purpose. God became my refuge. It wasn't the religion itself, it was the structure, the rules, the sense of belonging. My grandma had been religious, and when she died, that spiritual connection became even more meaningful. Through prayer, through community, I found a small piece of myself again. And from that place, a dream began to grow. Not to be a daughter anymore, but to become a mother, a matriarch, the center of a family. The glue, I dreamed of being the one who holds the house together, the one who gives the love I never received. Not necessarily because I wanted a husband, but because I wanted a wedding, a celebration, a fairy tale. I didn't dream of a man. I dreamed of a white dress, a cake, and dancing under fairy lights. That dream lived inside me for years, tucked beneath the pain, and yet somehow I had a normal adolescence. Same school, same group of friends since kindergarten. We laughed, we partied, we made dumb decisions. They knew my house, my family, I knew theirs. We grew up together, and that gave me some grounding. But my parents, they still don't speak to this day. They couldn't even be in the same room without poison in the air. I grew up trying to balance between two war zones. If I spent a weekend with my dad, my mom would act betrayed. If I stayed at my dad's side would guilt me. It was like being a pawn in a game I never agreed to play. I lived my entire teenage life trying to please everyone and failing miserably. And yet, through all that, I carried the same belief. If I could just build a family of my own, I'd finally be safe. Finally be whole. So I searched for love early. My first real relationship was with a man more than 10 years older than me. I was barely out of college. He was stable, grounded, everything I thought I needed. He even proposed. But we had nothing in common. zero compatibility. Still, I stayed because maybe, just maybe, love would grow later. Spoiler, it didn't. So I left. And then I stayed single for years, 4 years to be exact. I was tired of searching, of dating apps, of empty conversations, and even emptier connections. And then I saw him again, the man who would become my husband. It was early 2020, just before the pandemic. I stumbled on his Instagram profile. We had met 5 years earlier through mutual friends, had a short fling, and drifted apart. But now, it felt like the universe was giving us a second chance. We started talking. It started as flirty texts, long DMs, late night jokes. He told me he had just ended a relationship, caught his girlfriend texting someone else. He seemed raw, available. We reconnected fast. And I mean fast. Before I knew it, he was sleeping over. Then staying over. Then moving in. And that's when everything changed. It started like a dream. He moved in during the first few months of the pandemic summer 2020. Everything felt romantic, exciting, and even a little rebellious. We were that couple who made it through lockdown together. People on Instagram thought we were couple goals. But reality hit harder than any filter could hide. He didn't have a car. He didn't have his own place. He was living with his parents at the time. So when he started spending every day in my apartment, eating my groceries, using my car, lounging around, I snapped. One night, I turned to him and said, "This isn't a vacation rental. If you're going to be here every day, we need to split the bills. Or you move back to your mom's." He agreed. And just like that, we became roommates, lovers, and partners in the middle of a pandemic. It felt like a honeymoon at first. He was sweet, attentive, helpful. We cooked together, danced in the kitchen, binged Netflix until 3 a.m. I genuinely thought, maybe I found it. Maybe this is my forever. Until that night. A close friend of mine had gone through a rough breakup. She had already paid for a full set of wedding, desserts, cake, cupcakes, sweets for a celebration that never happened. So instead of letting it go to waste, she turned her canceled wedding into a birthday party. She asked if she could host it at my place. I said yes. My apartment wasn't Bidget, was a 400 square foot studio in downtown LA, but it was mine. And I wanted her to feel some kind of joy after what she'd been through. But he didn't like it. He complained about the noise. He rolled his eyes when we blew up balloons. He even started arguing with my friend over freaking balloons. That was the first red flag. That was the moment he stopped being sweet boyfriend and started acting like the landlord. 1 month in. Just 1 month of living together, and he was already trying to take control. The next red flag came wrapped in real estate. His mom came back from Florida in early 2021 and declared that our apartment was too small for her son. Not fancy enough, not appropriate for his status. I didn't realize then how important appearances were to them, but I would soon learn. Within weeks, they found him a new apartment, a bigger one, better location, paid for by his family. And suddenly, I was moving again. Not because I wanted to, but because he insisted. So we packed up, moved in together, again, and that's when the fairy tale shattered. In that apartment, the one his parents bought, everything changed. He began to remind me that I didn't own the place. He began to weaponize that truth during arguments. "It's my apartment," he'd say. "You can leave if you don't like it." Once, after a night out where we both had too much to drink, we argued. At 4 a.m., he locked me out. I was barefoot on the curb, calling a friend to come get me because he refused to let me in. That wasn't just a fight. That was psychological warfare. I tried to explain to him over and over that even if my name wasn't on the deed, it was still my home. I cooked there. I cleaned. I organized our lives. I decorated it with love. I made it feel like a home. But he didn't see it that way. And then came the apologies. Always the same pattern. He'd blame me, say I provoked him, say I was too emotional, too dramatic. Then he'd apologize, tell me he wasn't that kind of man, that he respected women, that he just lost control for a moment. And every time I believed him, because I wanted to, because I needed to believe that the man I loved wasn't becoming someone I feared. But the truth was undeniable. Each fight got uglier, each apology weaker. And slowly, I started to disappear inside that relationship. His mother once told him after one of our fights that he should kick me out before I could ever accuse him of anything. That stuck with me. Not because it was helpful advice, but because it showed me exactly what kind of family he came from. I began to realize that I wasn't just fighting him. I was fighting his entire environment. His parents, his friends, his worldview. I tried to keep control, tried to guide him, to coach him into becoming the kind of man I could actually build a life with, but that became my full-time job. I wasn't a girlfriend anymore. I was a manager, a life coach, a crisis negotiator, and it drained me until I reached a point where I could no longer carry the weight of both of us. That's when everything collapsed. It was the 2nd of October. 2 days before we were supposed to celebrate our official wedding lunch with close family. 2 days before I would have posted that just married photo. That morning, I did something I'd never done before. I opened his phone, and what I found destroyed me. The 2nd of October started like any other morning. He was away on a work trip out of town. I was working remotely from our apartment, sipping coffee, answering emails. And then, out of nowhere, I noticed his personal phone sitting on a shelf where it normally wasn't. He always kept it on the middle shelf of our shared office space. That day, it was higher out of my line of sight. Something inside me stirred. A whisper, a push. I picked up the phone. I told myself I'd only check the basics. Just instincts, you know? He had 2 phones on for work and 1 personal. On his personal phone, he never used WhatsApp. It was mostly for Instagram and occasional texts. I opened Instagram, not even expecting to find anything. But what I found, it wasn't just cheating. It was betrayal in its most devastating form. There she was, a woman from his office, a married woman, someone he had always described as just a friend, someone he insisted I had nothing to worry about. She's not even my type, he had said once. She's married, she's older. Don't be paranoid. He had painted her like a sister. But the messages, they were raw, intimate, emotional, and it wasn't 1 or 2, it was months. On the 13th of September, the day we legally got married, he texted her, "Everything with you feels so easy, so light. It makes me question everything else." And she responded, "You feel the same way to me, like peace." Another message from him, "What's worse? Being married to someone you don't love? Or loving someone you can't marry?" And her reply, "I dreamt of you all night, and I wasn't even sleeping." I read line after line, confession after confession, loving words that were supposed to be mine, given to someone else. She told him he was her favorite person in the world. He told her she was the most beautiful and brave woman he knew. Meanwhile, I was at home planning our wedding lunch, picking flowers, booking the photographer, choosing my dress. And he was falling in love with someone else. I took screenshots, dozens of them. I knew that one day someone might try to call me crazy, that I'd be told, "You're exaggerating," or "That never happened." So I documented everything. And then I sent them to him. No words, just the evidence, and waited. When he replied, he didn't deny anything. He didn't beg. He didn't cry. He didn't even apologize. He simply said, "I just wish we had what she and I have. With her, everything's easy." That's when I lost it. I told him, Of course, it's easy with her. You don't live with her. You don't split bills with her. You don't see her with puffy eyes in the morning or stressed from work. You see her filtered and polished, and I've been in the trenches with you for years. I asked him flat out, "Did you sleep with her?" He swore he didn't. Said it was just emotional. Just messages. I told him if that was true, then what was the plan? What would have happened if I hadn't found out? He said, "I would have broken up with you." That hit me harder than anything else, because it meant he was going to continue. He was going to lie until the last second. Ask me to pose for wedding photos while texting someone else behind my back. Then came the gaslighting. "Don't involve her husband," he begged. "Let's resolve this between us. Don't blow this up." I stared at the phone, stared at the man I thought I'd spend my life with, and realized he wasn't thinking about me at all. Not about my pain, not about our years together, only about protecting her. So I did the one thing he never expected. I texted her husband. I used his phone to message the man I'd never met. "Hi, I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this, but I found messages between your wife and my husband. They've been telling people they're just friends, but the messages say something else. I'm sending you the screenshots. Do what you need to do." Then I messaged her too. Told her I was informing her husband. Told her I wasn't afraid to burn everything down. I was shaking, crying, fuming. So I went to the gym, did an hour of cardio, not to lose weight, but to stop myself from breaking something. I knew that's what he wanted. He wanted me to explode, to scream, to act crazy, so he could say I was the problem. But I didn't. I didn't throw a thing. I didn't touch his stuff. When I got back, the entire Instagram thread was gone. He had deleted everything. I asked him why. He said, "To keep things private." I said, "Number, you deleted it because there was more. You just didn't want me to see." He still didn't apologize. Not once. He didn't say, "I'm sorry." He didn't say, "I made a mistake." All he said was, "Let's not involve another couple. Let's fix this quietly." He never mourned the relationship. He mourned getting caught. And that was the moment I stopped loving him. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the walls we'd painted together. It had been 20 days since our legal wedding. Just 20 days. And I was already planning the divorce. We were supposed to celebrate our marriage that Friday. Close family, a private lunch, flowers, a little cake, a photographer. I even had my dress picked out. But now, I was canceling everything. I was texting vendors, trying to explain what no bride should ever have to explain. "I'm sorry, the wedding celebration is off. I found out my husband's been emotionally cheating." Some were understanding, some were confused. The guy delivering the cake showed up anyway. I didn't have the heart to tell him. He placed it on the table so gently, so proudly, that I just let him believe there would be a party. To this day, he still doesn't know. But the worst part wasn't the celebration getting canceled. It was the silence. His silence. He didn't beg for me, didn't fight for us, didn't even try to explain. Instead, he texted me a list of things he wanted back. The cake, he wrote, the sweets, the engagement ring. I stared at that message and something inside me snapped. He wasn't mourning our relationship. He was inventorying it. So I told him, "Fine, you keep the financial loss. I'll keep the emotional damage. Seems fair." He agreed. We began negotiating like strangers dividing a storage unit. I said I'd return the family car that had been loaned to us. I said I'd leave his stuff at his parents' house. And then came the final delivery. It was nighttime when I pulled up outside their house. I had a box of his things in the back seat. When his dad saw me from the driveway, he looked startled. "What are you doing here?" he asked. I tried to keep it together. "Just dropping off some of his stuff," I said, my voice barely holding steady. He asked if I needed a ride. I lied. said my Uber was already there. Then I stepped inside the car and broke down. I cried the entire way home. I was choking on every breath, sobbing so hard I could barely speak. I called my mom, told her everything. "There's no wedding," I whispered through tears. "He's in love with someone else." My mom was silent for a moment. Then she said, "I'm coming." She wasn't alone. My aunts, uncles, and cousins from 3 different cities showed up at my apartment that night. They didn't wait for explanations. They just started packing. My uncle, deeply spiritual, grounded in faith, looked me in the eyes and said, "Let's go. He doesn't love you. Let's pack everything. You're leaving." I still don't know what my ex-husband told him, but for my uncle to say that to someone who always encouraged family and unity, it meant he saw the truth. That man didn't love me, not the way I deserved. We stayed up all night, didn't sleep a second. My mom cried in one room, I cried in another. Boxes stacked up, the life I built, piece by piece, being dismantled in a matter of hours. By Thursday morning, the apartment was almost empty. My uncle negotiated with my ex about the remaining bills. He agreed to pay what he owed me. Once the payment cleared, I would be gone. On Frida Your wedding lunch day, I left. No dress, no guests, just my mom, my brother, and some moving trucks. The only thing I couldn't cancel was the cake, and I couldn't look at it without sobbing. I wanted to be a bride. Instead, I was a woman, returning a car and dropping off the pieces of a shattered dream. And when it was all said and done, I did something I had promised myself I wouldn't do. I blocked him everywhere. No texts, no calls, no "let's talk," no closure. He didn't deserve it. But that wasn't the end. Because when someone can't own their shame, they rewrite the story. And that's exactly what he did. Once I was gone, he did exactly what cowards do. He rewrote history. He told people I snapped, that I had emotional issues, that the marriage ended because I was unstable, because I couldn't handle things. He didn't mention the affair, didn't mention the messages, didn't mention that I found them 2 days before our celebration lunch, didn't mention the lies, the manipulation, the silence. Instead, he painted himself as the victim, the misunderstood husband, the poor man dealing with a dramatic woman who just couldn't keep it together. Then I started seeing rumors from friends of friends, from his colleagues. He began telling people I had cheated on him. Let that sink in. The man who proposed while secretly loving someone else. The man who texted another woman every day from our home. The man who let me plan a wedding lunch while planning an escape was now accusing me of betrayal. It was like being stabbed twice. Once for the pain, once for the humiliation. That's when I decided I'm going to tell the truth. I posted a video online. I didn't name names. I didn't attack. I just told the truth. My truth. And within days, the fallout began. People started reaching out, some saying I had no idea. Others, mostly his friends, said I was making it up because abusers always have a fan club. But I didn't care. I wasn't telling my story for sympathy. I was telling it so another woman, just one, might recognize the signs before it's too late. He still works with her. They still see each other weekly. They blocked each other on Instagram after everything exploded, but they work in the same office. So I know they talk. Maybe they're still seeing each other. Maybe not. I don't care anymore. I even tried to reach out to her husband, the man whose life was also flipped upside down. But he blocked me. Didn't want to see it. Didn't want to believe it. I get it. Denial is easier than truth sometimes. And I wish that was the end of it. But it wasn't, because this story didn't just destroy my marriage. It shattered everything I believed about love, about loyalty, about family. The truth is, I didn't just lose a partner. I lost the future I had dreamed of. I wanted to build a home, celebrate Christmas with our kids, decorate the tree together, host Thanksgiving dinners, grow old with someone. But now, that dream is gone. And I'm not crying because I lost him. I'm crying because I lost the illusion. The idea that I could build something solid with someone unstable, that I could love someone into becoming the man I needed. And that's the most painful part. Not the betrayal, not the silence, not the lies, but the reality that I ignored the signs because deep down, I knew who he was. I just thought I could change it. When I first met him, I thought he was mature. He spoke multiple languages, graduated from a prestigious university in New York, came from a wealthy family, wore suits, had polished manners, traveled abroad. He looked like everything I had ever dreamed of. But beneath the surface, he was still a boy raised with too much privilege, a boy who never had to fight for anything, a boy who always got what he wanted without ever learning what it meant to earn it. His circle of friends, trust fund babies, weekend drinkers, party boys were just like him. Most of them had never worked a real job, never paid rent, never had to sacrifice for anything, and he thrived in that bubble. I didn't. I came from grit, from women who worked 2 jobs, from families who saved coupons and counted dollars. I learned how to stretch every paycheck and fight for every opportunity. So while he was out there figuring things out, I was surviving, building, providing. Even when we were married, I earned twice what he did. And it showed, not to me, but to him. He'd act fine when it was just us. But around his friends, around his family, he'd suddenly become competitive. He wanted to outshine me financially, intellectually, emotionally. It was like he needed to prove something. Like I was a threat. He once told me I was too independent, that I made him feel like less of a man. And the more I tried to make him feel loved, the more he resented me for the very things that made me strong. He gave me gifts, yes, lots of them, but they always came with strings. One Sunday, just days before I found out about the affair, we were at a flea market. He handed me a handmade necklace and said, "Here, this is for you." But later that night, during an argument, he brought it up, said, "I just gave you a gift this morning and this is how you act?" Suddenly, the necklace wasn't a gift anymore. It was a receipt, a transaction. That's how it always was. He'd buy me things, then hold them over my head, telling me I was ungrateful, that I didn't appreciate him, that I owed him kindness in return. It wasn't love. It was manipulation dressed as generosity. He treated affection like currency, and I was always in his debt, and the way he acted around others, like I was invisible. If we were with his parents, she'd ignore me. If we were with friends, she'd act like I wasn't even in the room. He'd suddenly become the charming, talkative, center of attention version of himself. And I'd be standing there wondering where the man I knew had gone. One time, after dinner with his parents, I told him, "You treat me like gold when we're alone, but when we're with your family, I feel like I don't exist." He shrugged, didn't deny it, didn't apologize, just shrugged. I started calling it his chameleon mode, changing who he was depending on the room, performing, adapting, always making sure he was liked, never making sure I felt loved. And when I finally confronted him about it, he said, "You're too sensitive." That was always his favorite phrase. Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "I'll do better." Just, "You're too sensitive." But I wasn't. I was intuitive. I was observant. And I was exhausted because I realized I hadn't married a partner. I had adopted a project. And deep down, I always knew. I knew he wasn't ready. I knew he wasn't stable. I knew he didn't love me the way I needed. But I kept convincing myself he'd grow. That with time, with care, he'd evolve into the man I had dreamed of. That he'd become strong, steady, solid. But he didn't. He became everything I feared. And when he cheated on Menot, physically, but emotionally, That was just the final confirmation. The truth is, I wanted a man, but I married a boy. After I sent him the screenshots, after I confronted him, after all the yelling and crying, he never once said, "I'm sorry." Not once. He didn't try to hold me, didn't show up at the door, didn't even call to ask if I was okay. And that's when it happened. Something quiet, something final. He died in my heart. Not physically, of course, but emotionally, spiritually, he was gone. I didn't grieve like a wife who lost a husband. I grieved like a woman who realized she had loved a ghost, a version of someone that never truly existed. I used to think that if a man betrayed me, I'd still remember the good times, still miss his touch, still long for the version of him that made me laugh in the kitchen. But I didn't. After the 2nd of October, I felt nothing. I didn't miss his voice. I didn't miss his arms. I didn't even miss the idea of him. I realized I had never truly been seen by him. He didn't understand me. He didn't study me. He didn't protect me. He just tolerated me until he didn't. And the love I thought I had for him, it cracked, then vanished. When I told my family what happened, my uncle came over immediately. He walked into my apartment, took one look at me and said, "Let's go. He doesn't love you. Time to leave." And I knew he was right. I didn't argue. I didn't hesitate. I packed everything. My dishes, my books, my photo frames, every candle, every pillow, every spoon. It was like cleaning up after a fire. The building was gone. I was just collecting the ashes. We spent Thursday packing. By Friday, I had moved out completely. I canceled the lunch reservation. I called the photographer, the florist, the makeup artist, all of it gone, except the cake. That cake arrived at my new temporary home, still perfectly decorated. The baker had poured his heart into it. I couldn't tell him what had happened. So I smiled, thanked him, closed the door. Then I collapsed. I cried so hard my chest burned. I looked at my mom and said, "I was married for 20 days. 20 days? People don't even return their wedding gifts that fast." I had dreamed of being a wife, a mother, the glue that holds a home together. And now, I was a divorcee with a wedding cake and no wedding. I remember sitting on the floor, rocking back and forth like a child, telling God, "I can't do this. I can't take this pain." My chest felt like it was being ripped open. Not because of him, but because of the dream. I wasn't mourning the man. I was mourning the life I thought I was building. The Christmases, the birthday parties, the family photos on the wall, the little shoes by the front door, gone. And for what? For a fantasy love with a woman he couldn't even be honest about. He gave up a real future for a secret thrill. And I was left holding the pieces. That night, my uncle called him. I still don't know what was said. But after the call, my uncle told me, "He doesn't love you. He said it himself. We're done here." And I believed him because I needed to hear it from someone who wouldn't lie to me. I stayed up all night with my mom. We didn't sleep. We didn't eat. We just packed and cried. By sunrise, I wasn't even tired. I was numb. And by sunset, I was gone. Out of that apartment, out of that relationship, out of that illusion, forever. I remember holding the keys in my hand. The keys to the car that technically wasn't even mine, his family's car, which had been loaned to us. But I didn't care. I just needed to return his things and get out of his life. I threw everything into the back seat. His gym bag, his sneakers, his sweaters, that one hoodie I used to steal and sleep in. I put it all in the trunk like it was toxic waste, and then I drove. As I approached the intersection, I felt the weight of everything that had just happened. The betrayal, the silence, the humiliation, the way he'd asked for the wedding cake back, The way he demanded I return the engagement ring like it was just some piece of merchandise he could refund. My vision blurred. My hands started shaking on the wheel. And for a split second, I almost crashed that car. I looked at the pole on the corner and thought, if I just let go of the wheel right now, I could end all this. But I didn't, because something inside me whispered, this pain is temporary. Don't make it permanent. So I pulled over, parked the car, and sobbed. That wasn't heartbreak. That was grief. Not the grief of losing love, but the grief of losing dignity, losing dreams, losing yourself in someone who never saw your worth. When I finally got to his parents' house, I rang the doorbell with my head down. His mom answered. She didn't say a word. I handed her the bag, the car keys, told her I hoped she raised her son better than this. Then I walked away. Back in my apartment, my temporary apartment, I shut the door and stared at the silence. And it stared back. No furniture, no laughter, no smell of his cologne. Just emptiness. And yet, I felt lighter. It was the first time in 4 years that I wasn't worried about his mood swings, wasn't tiptoeing around his insecurities, wasn't planning my life around how he might react. I sat on the floor, alone, and I let myself grieve. Not him, but me. The version of me who had tried so hard to be the perfect wife, who had ignored all the red flags, who thought she could love someone into healing. That girl was gone now. She had tried everything, and in return she got lies, silence, and a man who didn't even have the decency to say sorry. In the days that followed, he never reached out, not to check on me, not to apologize, not to return the emotional debt he owed me. Instead, he told people I had gone crazy, said I blew up over nothing. But I had the receipts, the messages, the screenshots, the truth. And that truth was mine to carry, to heal, to tell, not to protect him, not to defend his name, not to keep quiet so he could keep pretending. Because I wasn't going to let him rewrite the story. I wasn't just the girl who got dumped. I was the woman who stood back up. It's been over 2 months. And some days I feel like I'm drowning. I'll be at a cafe or walking through the grocery store, and suddenly I'll see a couple holding hands or a baby's onesie on sale, and it hits me like a wave. I was supposed to have that. Not with him, but with someone who saw me, who chose me. Other days, I feel strong, grateful even. Grateful that God exposed the truth when he did. Grateful I found out before I got pregnant. Grateful I escaped before I built a life with someone who would have destroyed me piece by piece. But the grief? It's real. Not because I miss him, but because I miss what I thought I had. I miss the vision. The future I planned in my head. The holidays we never got to spend. The dinners I'll never cook in a house we'll never own. The traditions that died before they began. I've realized something. We grieve dreams just as deeply as we grieve people. And that's okay. One night, I cried so hard I asked God, how am I ever going to marry again? How am I supposed to trust again? And God answered, not with thunder or lightning, but with his quiet thought. It was more impossible before than it is now. Before, I had one shot with the wrong person. Now, I have endless chances to get it right with the right one. So, yeah, maybe I'll marry again someday. But I won't do it wearing blinders. I won't build castles with someone who's afraid of brick. And I won't confuse attention for love, or gifts for affection, or silence for peace. Now, I want substance. I want someone whose actions match their words, who honors commitment not just in public but in private. And most of all, I want a partner, not a project. If I could say anything to other women going through this, it would be this. Stop making excuses for behavior you'd never accept in someone else. If he says one thing and does another believe the actions, If you feel small around him, it's not because you're too sensitive. It's because he needs you to feel small to feel big. Watch what he does. Not what he promises. Not what you hope he might become. What he actually is right now. Because I knew, deep down, I knew who he was. I saw the signs. I just thought I could outlove the truth. But love isn't enough when only one person is doing the work. So no, I don't feel sorry for myself anymore. I feel awake. I didn't lose the love of my life. I lost the man who was blocking the love of my life from ever finding me. And now I'm building a new life. One that doesn't revolve around someone else's ego. One where I'm not just seen, but celebrated. He's free now. Free to chase whatever illusion he's still holding on to. And I'm free too. Free to rebuild. Free to heal. Free to love again this time, with my eyes wide open